I've been going on a Christ in the Disciple theme, and I'm titling this message, Confronting Disciples, from John 13:21 through the end of the chapter. I want to talk about this very kid. 12-year-old Brody Ritter arrived home from school with a nearly empty yearbook, only managing to acquire the signatures of 2 teachers and 2 of his classmates, despite asking for more. Ritter decided to sign his own yearbook with a note to himself. He wrote, "Hope you make some more friends." Wow. Ritter's mom, Cassandra Ritter, had reached her breaking point. Her son's message to himself was a reflection of multiple months worth of bullying her son had experienced at school in a Denver suburb. I know that it's a Westminster. I used to work at a company in Westminster. Brody's hurt and pain inspired her to share a message with the parents' Facebook group for the school. She wrote, "My poor son. Doesn't seem like it's getting any better." 2 teachers and a total of 2 students wrote in his yearbook, despite Brody asking all kinds of kids to sign it. So Brody took it upon himself to write it to himself. "My heart is shattered. Teach your kids kindness." After sharing the post with the school community, Cassandra posted to her personal Facebook, wanting to keep her friends updated on what was happening. This is what the support exploded that she experienced. Celebrities, companies, parents, and kids all reached out online and in real life to show Brody support. Among those to see Cassandra's message was Paul Rudd, who plays Ant-Man in the hit films Ant-Man and the Adventures Endgame. Rudd FaceTimed Ritter and sent him a handwritten note. It's important to remember that even when life gets tough and that things get better, there are so many people that love you and think you're the coolest kid there is. Me being one of them. Brody even received a signed Ant-Man helmet from the actor. Here's the note. A little bit of kindness, a little bit of encouragement will go a long way. I don't know about you, but I have selfish tendencies. I think of myself. I think of the dog, because the dog has ruined some of my things. So I'm selfish. I don't want my things ruined anymore. Did we leave her in the cage, or is she free? We hope she's on top of the couch, not chewing the things of mine like she has been the last couple of days. It's important to be encouraging. Jesus wants us to remember to be encouraging, and he confronts the disciples with this truth. Verse 21, when Jesus had said these things, he became troubled in spirit and testified and said, "Truly, truly, I say to you that one of you will betray me." The order of the events on that night, the last night Jesus was alive, was as follows. 1, Jesus washes the feet of his disciples and explains to them that he has given them an example to be followed. They were supposed to be servants. They're supposed to be committed to each other, and we're supposed to be committed to each other and servants of each other if we have the ability. 2, he startles the disciples by telling them that one of their own number is about to betray him. And then Judas leaves in verses 21 through 30. He issues his new commandment and predicts Peter's denial in verses 31 through 38. He institutes the Lord's Supper. This important event having fully covered by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and by Paul, John does not repeat it. And lastly, he tenderly instructs his disciples and commits them to his Father's care. So Simon Peter nodded to this disciple and said to him, "Tell us who it is of whom he is speaking." There's some debate, but I think since John wrote it himself, he was nodding to John. John doesn't name himself in some of these matters, but he's the disciple who was the closest friend to Jesus on earth, and so I think he was talking to him. Peter signaled to John. He gave the latter credit for knowing more than he actually knew. Simon was convinced that John knew whom Jesus had in mind when he said, "One of you will betray me." Why was John keeping this information to himself? So having gained his attention, Peter demands of him, "Say who it is of whom he speaks." Jesus then answered, "That man is the one for whom I shall dip the piece of bread and give it to him." So when he had dipped the piece of bread, he took and gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. It would seem that even before John had asked his question, Jesus had broken off a piece of unleavened bread from one of the flat cakes lying on the table. Holding it in his hand, he whispers to his beloved disciple that the traitor is that man to whom he is going to give the morsel after having dipped it. So having dipped it into a vessel filled with bitter herbs and vinegar and salt, or into one which contained a sauce made of mashed fruit, probably dates, figs, and raisins, representing the fruits of the land, water and vinegar, the two bitter herbs and mashed fruit may even now have been combined to one bowl, as was the practice. He took it out again and gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. After this, Satan then entered him. Therefore, Jesus said to him, "What you are doing, do it quickly." The devil had put an evil suggestion. The devil himself. The devil does not do much. He's a lazy person. He generally has his demons around, but he knew that the Son of God, Jesus, was about to be crucified. And so the devil took personal attention to get into the mind and influence Judas Iscariot. He was not saved. He was part of the devil's minions. Judas has acted upon that suggestion. Now the devil, here called Satan, the adversary, puts himself into Judas's heart. Quickly, that means what you are doing, do it faster, do it speedier. Thus, tersely, Jesus dismissed Judas and at the same time revealed that he, as Lord of all, was complete master of the situation. All the details of his passion, including the time schedule, were in his own hands, not in the hands of the traitor. Now, none of those who were reclining at the table knew for what purpose he had said this to him. By this time, 3 or 4 people at the table knew the identity of the traitor. Jesus, who had known it all along, Judas, of course, John, and probably Peter. However, the words, "What are you doing? Do it more quickly," were heard by all of them. They had been of the opinion that since Judas was in charge of the money box, he was being directed to buy whatever was necessary for the 7-day festival, or that the treasurer, Judas, had received the veiled instruction in order that he might give something to the poor. Incidentally, this indicates that the disciples considered it to be natural for Jesus to promote Christian benevolent giving to the poor. So, after receiving the piece of bread, he left immediately, and it was night. He went out immediately to confer with the authorities as to the place and the time of the arrest. It is now or never. The plot had been discovered. All is known. Hence, let it be foiled. The rulers must act at once. It was night when Jesus left the room, night outside, night also inside the heart of Judas. Verse 31, therefore, when he had left, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified. God is glorified in him. With the dismissal of Judas, the die was cast. Not as if there had been any uncertainty with respect to the divine plan that Jesus was to die for his people. God's eternal decree is absolutely unchangeable and is sure to be realized. But now, with the dismissal of Judas, the realization of this plan in history has reached another decisive stage when Jesus dismissed Judas with the words, what you are doing, do it faster. He thereby, again, decisively manifested his willingness to enter the deep waters and the dark night of eternal death for his own. If God is glorified in him, verse 32 says, God will also glorify him in himself and will glorify him immediately. Father and Son glorify each other, for though they are two persons, they are one in essence. By means of the passion, resurrection, ascension, and coronation, God will glorify the Son in intimate union with himself, so that the Son's glory reflects the glory of the Father, and vice versa. Yes, immediately will the Father glorify him, the Son. Immediately, indeed, for Gethsemane, Gabbatha, and Golgotha are just around the corner. It was night. In a few hours, the Son of Man would be entering the Garden of Gethsemane to be betrayed. I am giving you a new commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you, that you love also one another. The command to love others was not new for the Jewish people and for Christians, but Jesus had a degree, just as I have loved you. What was he doing? In Matthew 13:1, he was willing, because he knew he was going to the Father, to do anything short of dying for them. He was willing to wash their feet. He was willing to do anything for his Christian brothers. That's the big deal. It is true indeed that the commandment which required love for the neighbor, for the children of thy people, is found already in the Old Testament. In fact, love for God and for the neighbor is the summary of the law. But the newness of the precept here is promulgated, is evident from the fact that Jesus requires his disciples shall love one another as he loved them. His example of constant, the word shade of meaning is to keep on loving. Keep on loving continuously. Self-sacrificing love must be the pattern for their attitude and relationship towards each other, because voluntary obedience to this precept is of paramount importance for the spiritual welfare of the disciples and, in fact, of the entire church. And because his own heart is filled with love, Jesus repeats this precept. By this will all people know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Jesus instructs us to witness with the fact that we love each other, we sacrifice for each other, we do things for each other, because loving is not natural. It's natural to love people that are your benefactors, because even the world does this. But when you love somebody enough to sacrifice for them, to put yourself out for them, that's so unnatural that people will be interested, be drawn. I don't know how many times people have said to me, you go to church every Sunday? Of course, yes, because A, I work there, ha ha ha. But you don't have to be here. You don't have to watch online. Why do you do it? Why do you sacrifice the time? Genuine, deep-seated, constant, and self-sacrificing love for one another is, Jesus says, is the distinguishing trait of the Christian. It is by the outward manifestation of this glorious quality the disciples of the Master can expect to exert an influence on the world. People will begin to recognize that to Christ and to no one else these believers belong. Everybody will begin to see, quote, the Christ in the Christian. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, where are you going? Jesus answered, where I am going, you cannot follow me now. Jesus, through death by crucifixion, is leaving the world and going to the Father. Peter cannot follow him now. Why not? Because according to God's eternal decree, the exact moment for Peter's departure had not yet arrived. And because Peter was not yet spiritually ready. The rest of the denials and stuff are included in this fact. Afterward, however, Peter will go the way of Christ, and he too will go to the Father, and he will go to the Father, moreover, by being, I believe the legend is true, he will be crucified by hanging up on an upside-down cross. Peter said to him, Lord, why cannot I'll follow you right now? I will lay down my life for you. Lord, why I cannot follow right now shows three things about Peter. One, his devotion to the Master. He wants to be where Jesus is. His impatience right now and his self-reliance. he thinks that he is ready to follow Jesus even into death, as he clearly indicates by continuing, "My life for you I will lay down." In other words, Peter says, I will be braver than the other disciples are. I will not be ensnared. I will not deny you either, no matter what happens. I will go the limit for thy benefit. My life for you I will lay down. Peter is willing, if necessary, to die for Christ. But very few will die for Christ. It's more important to take advantage of the fact that we are supposed to live for Christ. Jesus replied, "Will you lay down your life for me? Truly, truly, I say to you, a rooster will not crow until you deny me 3 times." Jesus knew, of course, that the exact opposite was going to happen within a few hours, and this in 2 respects. Not Peter would lay down his life for Jesus, but Jesus would lay down his life for Peter. And Peter would not lay down his life for Jesus, but would deny him. I want to talk about the time you can anticipate the rooster crowing. Rooster crowing served as a time indication, and Mark 13:35 indicates that it marked the 3rd of the 4 watches of the night. These 4 were as follows. Evening was 6 to 9 p.m. roughly. Midnight was 9 to 12, ending at midnight. Rooster crowing is 2 to 3, midnight to 3 a.m. And morning was referred to as 3 to 6 a.m. What Jesus means is before 3 a.m., Peter will deny him 3 times. The reference is to the second part of this 12 to 3 a.m. period is clear from Mark 14:30. Peter was actually going to hear this crowing. He cried as a result. For us, to summarize, Jesus issues his new commandment and predicts Peter's denial. Jesus explained that by means of the dismissal of Judas, he has been glorified, and that God will glorify him, yes, immediately. In Christ's humiliation and exaltation, the radiance of God's glorious attributes shines forth. In view of his imminent departure to a place where he cannot now be followed, Jesus issued his new commandment that his disciples should show constant and self-sacrificing love to one another, to each other, ever looking to him, Jesus, as the one who gave the example. Peter answers, "Lord, why cannot I follow you right now? My life for you I will lay down." Thus Peter indicates his devotion, impatience, and self-reliance. Jesus contradicts Peter by declaring, "Your life for me you will lay down. I most solemnly assure you, the rooster will certainly not crow until you have denied me 3 times." I have a story I want to tell you about Kira Rumfola. She was going to East Islip High School, and she played basketball in her spare time. At the end of her freshman year at the University of Tampa, Kira Rumfola packed her bags and headed to the airport with her favorite roommate, a colorful betta fish named Theo. You can see the picture. This story is more popular than I thought. Kira, 19, was to be headed home to Long Island for the summer and was happy to be bringing home the little fish that she had bonded with. She figured there would be no problem taking Theo on board the airplane in a small portable fish container. She said, "I'd done it before over the holidays with another airline, so I filled the container with water and put Theo in it." But there was a problem. While she was checking in, a customer service agent named Ismail Lazo noticed the fish and explained to Kira that that airline's pet policy allowed only small dogs and cats on board in carriers. No other pets were permitted on the planes. Kira said, "All of my roommates have already gone home for the summer, and I had no one to leave Theo with. I was really sad and wondered what I was going to do. He's my pet." Laszlo understood, room full of concern for Theo. "I have 2 dogs. I wouldn't want you to abandon them somewhere. How about if I take your fish home to live with me and my fiance until you come back for college in the fall? You can text me over the summer to see how he's doing." This is a screenshot of one of the texts he sent. Kira's face lit up right away. He felt good about the unusual offer. Kira promised that she would check in often over the summer to see how Theo was faring in his contemporary home. As soon as she arrived home in New York, she texted Laszlo, "Hi, Ismail. It's the girl from the airport with a fish. I was just wondering how he was doing." Laszlo quickly responded, "Hey, we are heading to the store to buy him a bigger tank right now." Laszlo said that he didn't feel sad when Kira returned to classes in late August. It was this year, in September, I read the story for the first time. And it was time to reunite her with Theo. "To be honest, I was worried about someone and something happening to him on our watch. I was happy for Kira to have him back." When Ramfola went to Laszlo's apartment to pick up the fish, she gave him and his fiancée a store gift card and some candy as a gesture of thanks. I can't believe it. I've had my share of helpful flight helpers, but I have also had my share of rude people who are very busy. It's exceptional for them to take care of her fish and buy a tank for it or themselves and give them back. They're not Christians, but we're supposed to do above and beyond like they are. If unsaved people will make a sacrifice, what are we prepared to do?